explain to me why there are so many books on my bed right now? Oh my god. Hello Munch Kitties and welcome to a new literary video. Today I present to you... Okay, let's start. I'm currently reading... I had a TBR for this. Did you see that fly? What's it doing here? I did a TBR for September and I failed miserably at it because this wasn't on my TBR, but I realized I wasn't in a romance mood, so I picked this up. So this book is just making an appearance to tell you what I'm currently reading, because this book does not count anymore because I'm reading it. Although I had this book on my bookshelf for a year, so that's good. Let's start. Okay, first book, Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. Okay, this book I've had on my bookshelf for almost 2 years, and I did start reading it actually. I did start reading it because I've always just been like obsessed with Lolita since like Pretty Little Liars and Allison reading the book. And then I watched the movies and just kind of went down a rabbit hole on this book. Lana Del Rey's Lolita is one of my favorite songs. So I've always just been like obsessed with it, and I have the book and I did start reading it. So I went, can we see that halo over there? Oh my god. So I went to an all-girls Catholic school and I made the mistake of reading this book at school, and I got so many glances thrown my way. I thought to myself, let's just put this away for now. I never picked it back up. So I don't know when I will be reading this again, actually. I don't know when I will be brave enough to pick it up again. Because look at this cover. I mean, come on. Why couldn't I find the Ali De Laurentiis book cover? That was so amazing. Okay, next book. Beach Read by Emily Henry is on my TBR for this year. I recently got started on reading her books. I read People We Meet on Vacation and Happy Place. I'm pretty sure we all know the story on that already because I posted the yes, no, maybe video and I kind of explained what was going on there. This is the book that is giving me hope that she will turn herself around in my mind. I am currently not really liking her writing style, so I hope that with a beach read, it will change and she will kind of be 50-50 for me. So, because I know everybody adores this book, and I want to be one of the people. I want to adore this book like all of you, okay? I really do. Next book. Ooh, Cleopatra and Frankenstein. I started this book and then put it on hold because I wasn't in the mood for it, and then picked it back up and then put it on hold because it was boring to me. I was like bored out of my mind. I was like, whoa. When I first started reading this, I wasn't in the mood, but I was enjoying it. And all of a sudden, I'm bored with it. I don't know what's going on up here, but I really want to read this, okay? I remember really enjoying it. I mean, look at it, it was like really tabbed. I don't know. I don't know when I will have the guts to pick this book back up again, but I hope soon, because I remember really enjoying it and really just being like obsessed with the characters. So, oh God, I don't know. I don't know when I'll read that again. I'm sorry. Okay, next book. Ooh, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Why I have not read this book is just insane, because I love horror. I love Frankenstein. I've seen Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, Frankenstein. Alvin and the Chipmunks meet Frankenstein. So many. So why I haven't read the book is beyond me. Plus, I know everything about Mary Shelley, the author of this book. I know everything about her life, even details that some people might not want to be, might not want to hear. But I love this. I don't love this book because I haven't read it. I love Frankenstein. And I want to really read it. I've had this book for only a year on my bookshelf, so it hasn't been on it for that long. But I might read it next year. Who knows? I might. I want to read a classic, at least one classic every year. If I read more than one, well, that's good. Which leads me to The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This is a classic I really want to get to next year. The thing, like, you may be asking yourself, why, if you're so excited to read these books, why didn't you just read them this year? I do this thing where I do a yearly TBR, and these are the books that I'm only reading for the year. And in a way, it's kind of good, but then I buy these books and I really want to read them. and then I don't read them until next year. It's this whole thing. I'm sorry. I'm parched. I love cherry Coke, by the way. It's like the best Coke flavor. Anyway, stupid fly. Between the fly and Seuss just throwing thunderbolts to the sky is just, ugh. Anyways, that's why I didn't read this year, because I bought this a couple months ago. I bought this in May. What I probably will be doing next year is I will make a yearly TBR, but I will give myself a chance to like, okay, if I bought a book that I really want to read, then I'll read it. So yeah. Anywho, I really want to get to this book, and I will most definitely read this next year. Next book. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I put this book on hold, but I will be getting back to it because I didn't DNF it. I want to know what's going on with Nora's sister. Nora's the main character, and Libby, her sister, has some like marital and family problems going on, and that's kind of what's keeping me interested in the book. So that's why I want to read it. Not because I care about Nora and Charlie's love story, okay? They're so bland. This isn't enemies to lovers, people. They're kissing in chapter 3. Enemies to lovers is Olive and Ethan from On Honeymooners. They hate each other throughout the book. There's like maybe some kind of like little spark there, and this little flicker of, oh, you know what, maybe he's always loved her. Oh, you know what, maybe she realized he's not such a terrible person. And they kiss. They kiss in chapter 3. That's not enemies. That's just people who don't know how to communicate their feelings and kiss randomly and pretend to hate each other. That's what that means. Okay. I will be reading this year because it's on my TBR for this year. So I will be getting around to it. I'll probably film a vlog where I read these 2 books back to back. So yeah. Next book. Circe by Madeline Miller. I love Greek mythology. It is one of my most favorite things in the world. I love it. Why I have not read this book is beyond me. Because I see the cover, and I've read the back, and I've seen the reviews, and I've seen people talk about it. It will become one of my most favorite books. Why I haven't read it is beyond me. But I will be reading it. I promise. I will be reading this next year for fall. Next book. Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I have read Normal People. I'm currently reading Beautiful World, Where Are You? This one I have not read. I really don't know why. This book has been sitting on my shelf for 3 years. This book has been sitting on my shelf for 2 years, and I don't know why I haven't read it. I really don't. I really want to watch the show, so I want to read the book before watching the show. So I'll read this. I just don't know when. Next book. Song of Achilles. I know that I just said I love Greek mythology with everything in my heart. I do love it. I love studying it. I love reading about it. I love the myths. I just love everything. Hades and Persephone are my favorite. But anyways, this I did start reading. I got to maybe about 150. I couldn't understand anything. I like to watch a movie in my mind, so I couldn't do it with this book, and it was just very annoying to me because I was just like seeing gray spots. I was like, no, I like to picture characters and places and, interactions. And I couldn't do it with this book. And so it was really disappointing that I wasn't enjoying this as much as other people were. And I just let it go. I don't know when I'll pick it up again, to be honest. So, yeah. Next book. Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This book, I bought this year in May as well. So obviously I didn't add it to this year's TBR. I probably will be reading it next year. Look at this cover. I love this cover. It's just so perfect. I really want to read this book though. It's really intriguing, the plot. Basically, I don't really want to talk about what the books are about, but I'll give insight on this one, just so you know why I really want to read it. So it's about these 2 friends. They both studied, literature and writing in college, so they're both writers. However, friend number 1 is super successful. She published so many articles in magazines. She, out of college, her book went on for sale right away with one of the top publishers at the time. It was like, whoa, like she was everywhere. And friend number 2 couldn't. She wrote and wrote and wrote, and she couldn't get the same success, and she's barely making ends meet. So she's like, oh my God. They go out to dinner one night and friend number 1 gets ran over. And friend number 2 is like, oh my God. Friend number 2, what she does is that friend number 1 was writing this book. She had a manuscript finished. I mean, it just needed the like basic read through to just check grammar and punctuations and what to maybe take out, stuff like that. So friend number 2 steals that manuscript and passes it off as her own and finally meets the success she wants. But someone knows what she did. It's like a thriller. It is very important though here that friend number 2 is Asian and friend number 1 is white. So there's a lot of racial talk in this book. And I really want to read it. It sounds super interesting. But I bought it earlier this year, so I didn't add it to this year's TBR. I probably, most certainly, will be reading this book next year. The Paper Palace by Miranda Kelly Heller. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. I thought I was missing a book. This book, Reese Witherspoon in her book club, she picked it. I don't remember when. I know I've had this for a year on my bookshelf. Honestly, anything Reese Witherspoon picks, I am so keen on reading because I trust her with everything. She always has great writing, great book recommendations. I was gonna say writing recommendations. Great book recommendations. Because of her, I read Daisy Jones in the Six, and it's one of my favorite books. So I really want to read this. I really want to get around to it. So yeah. Okay, next book. Commonwealth by Ann Patchett. My sister has a bone to pick with this book. Look at the letter size. I don't know if you can see it. It's super small, and it's pocket, so it's like you're reading like you're spying on people. I feel like Randall from Recess when I'm reading this, because I'm like just looking. So I don't know when I'll get around to it, to be honest. I'm gonna be so honest. I bought this book based off the cover because the cover is so beautiful. I really like it. I don't know when I'll read it though. I don't know. Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. This book I bought. This book has been sitting on. It fell. This book has been sitting on my shelf for 2 years. This book has been sitting on my shelf since May. I really want to read it though. I have only read It by Stephen King. I haven't read anything else by him, but I really want to read this. This is horror. I love horror. And this book is it's always been so intriguing to me. Like, I've always known this book existed, and I've always known what it's about. I just could never find it, and I finally did, even though it's a pocket edition. I was like, I'm going to buy this. I need this. And I will most certainly be reading this book next year because, oh my God. Oh God, that little smiley face right there. God, I really want to read this. Okay, next book. Every Breath by Nicholas Sparks. Everyone is always saying, if you're a reader, you have to read at least 5 Nicholas Sparks novels. I have 2. Another one that I won't mention because it's here. This book I solely bought because my mother was like, oh, look, buy this book. And I was like, okay, I will trust you. I've had this book sitting on my shelf for 2 years. I don't know when I'll get around to it, to be honest. I guess it all depends on how it goes when I read another Nicholas Sparks book that is right here, but you'll have to wait and see. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. This is the classic I want to read this year. I have been wanting to read this classic forever, since I saw a scene from the movie. I was very young when I saw that scene, so I wanted to watch the movie, but they're like, no, wait till you read the book. And so I was like, okay. And then I never got around to reading the book because I couldn't find it anywhere. And then I found it, and this book has been sitting on my shelf for 5 years. And I have never read it. And that's shocking because I really want to read it. So I was like, okay, this is the year I read To Kill a Mockingbird. And I will be reading this book this year. Next book is Hooked by Emily McIntyre. This book was a gift earlier this month from my aunt, who also gifted me Neon Gods. She always gifts me the smileyest dark romance books ever, and it's like so wild. But I really want to read this. I just kind of always loved Captain Hook. I've always felt like he was like a misunderstood villain, kind of like Hades. He's a very misunderstood villain. So I'm really excited to just finally open this book up and like devour it because, oh my God, just the synopsis is so good. My God, the fly. So yeah, for all of us girlies who grew up watching the 2003 version of Peter Pan and for unknown reasons always shipped Wendy and Hook, this is the book. So yeah, next book. Oh, here it is. Nicholas Sparks' The Wish. This is the book I'm reading this year. And this book I bought solely because it says, in 1996, everything changed for Maggie Dawes. Sent away at 16 to live with an aunt she barely knew in Ocracoke, a remote village on North Carolina's Outer Banks. That's why I bought it, because it's set in the Outer Banks, and I love Outer Banks. I love it. Oh my god, season 4, part 1 comes out in October. Oh my god, it's so close. Me and my sister are obsessed with that show. We love it so much, and that's literally the reason why I bought this book. And I will be reading this in December because it's dual timeline, and it's 1996 and 2019. And 2019 takes place over Christmas, and that's when I want to like read this book, like in December, you know? So that's why I haven't read it, but I will be reading it this year. I've had this book for 2 years. The Paris Library by Janet Skesling Charles. I'm sorry if I butchered that. This is historical fiction. This is also dual timeline between 1939 Paris and 1983 Montana. I love historical fiction because I love history. I love history so much. Ow, I hit myself. I just really love learning about historical events while I'm reading without reading nonfiction. So I think this would be like a really good book for me. It's about the libraries in Paris during World War II, I think. Or at the start of World War II, something like that. I think it is World War II. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know when I'll be reading this book though. Because I always say, oh, I'm gonna read it. And then I never read it. So I don't promise anything. I'm sorry. Next book. Ooh, Love in the Brain by Ali Hazelwood is my last Ali Hazelwood book on my shelf. I need to buy more. She's one of my favorite authors. Her books are just so quick and fun to read. And they are just always like, they're so easy that my Goodreads just goes up. And it's like, you're a book ahead of schedule because I finished these so quickly. I'm parched because I yap too much. But anyways, I really want to like read this book. I've heard mixed reviews on it, people being like, oh, it's not really that good. I don't know. I want to have my own opinion on it. Next book. After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I only have 2 books by her left on my bookshelf because I cannot find Forever Interrupted anywhere. It's out of stock everywhere. I cannot find it. And it's really, really, really stressing me out because I love her books and she said she wasn't going to write for a while. So I'm like, oh my God. She's not going to write for a while. I can't find Forever Interrupted anywhere. What am I going to do? So I don't know. I have another book by her. I don't know if to maybe like postpone one and read it next year. But they're both on my TBR this year. I don't know. But after I do, I really want to read it. This was like the one book by her that I was least excited to read about. And then I just opened it and I read something and I was like, oh, gut-wrenching, heartfelt romances that make my heart burst. Yes, books that make you feel intense emotions and make you cry and sob like a baby are books that are supposed to be read. That is literally what they're made for. Of course, next book. Y'all are gonna be so mad at me for this. A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. This book scares me because, look at this. Aside from that she's floppy, she's thick. Really thick. And I have seen so many people cry. They start the book and they're like, oh my God. Oh my God. And then, and then they're crying. And I'm like, okay. That scares me. I don't know when I'll read this. I'm sorry. Aside from the fact that this book is like 814 pages long, it's sad. And like I said, books that make you feel intense emotions are books that are meant to be read. That is my motto. But like my mental health, I'm just starting to get better. I don't know. It really depends on what's going on up here. If I'll ever read that. Next book. Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This book is another one that at first I heard everybody was like, I love it. I've had this book for 2 years. I've had this book for a couple months because I got it for my birthday in January. And I've had this book for 2 years. this is a book that everybody at first was like, oh my god, it's a masterpiece, and now people are hating on it. So yeah, this is horror. I added it for this year because I added a lot of romance and not enough like I only added romance and not other genres, so I don't have like much diversity right now. So yeah, I was kind of putting this off for October because like horror. Look at this. Amazing. I know. Next book. I'm trying to power run now. This is the other TGR book I have, One True Loves. Now, this is the one that I'm most excited about because this is one book by her that I've been wanting to read for oh so long. I've had this book only for a couple of months because I also got it with my birthday. I got these two for my birthday. So, yeah. I'm reading it this year. I'm really excited. If I do end up reading both of her books this year, I'll make a blog, like with Emily Henry. Next book. The Brothers Hawthorne by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This book I did get a couple months ago, and I did cheat and added it to my TBR, but because I read the Inheritance Game trilogy, and I thought that it was just that, and then everybody was like, no, you have to read this, it's the 4th book. It's not a completed series. That really pissed me off. But, you know, it's what's complete right now until Games Untold comes out November 14th, I believe. I cannot wait for that book. I have been putting this one off because I didn't want the Inheritance Games world to end. But I have to read it this year because it's in my TBR. So, yeah. Next book. Oh, Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Knoll. This is also on my TBR. Now, all of my TBR books are like, yo, what the heck? This is a book, it's a thriller. There's a movie on Netflix starring Mila Kunis. The ending to the movie is very different to the ending of the book. So if you're like, oh, I'll watch the movie and not read the book, this is a different ending, and I think it's more suspenseful. So I really want to read it. This has been on my bookshelf for a year, and I really want to get around to it. So yeah. Next book. My Favorite Half Night Stand by Christina Lauren. I started this book. This was actually the book that I was supposed to read in September. That's what I mean by I failed my TBR miserably because I was like, I'm not really in the mood for romance. And I started reading literary fiction. I will be getting around back to this because the main character's name is Reed, and I imagine Spencer Reed. So like, I must read this, you know? And it was really good. I was really enjoying it. I just wasn't in the mood for it at the moment. Next book. One of Us Is Next by Karen M. McManus. I read the first one 2 years ago when I received both of these books. I've had this for 2 years and have not read it. I want to get around to it though. I just don't know when. Yeah, next book. The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This book I've had for 3 years. This was one of the first like books on Booktok that everybody was obsessing over. I've always just been really like terrified of reading this because I've never read like fantasy, like fairies and like world building and all that. And I always procrastinate it. I don't know when I'll read it though. There is a quote in The Wicked King that really makes me want to read this entire trilogy. I just don't know if I'll get to it. And if I do get to it, I don't know when. Next book. Y'all are gonna kill me for this, but Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. I'm a huge Twilight fan. I watch it every September, all the movies. I'm currently watching them with my youngest sister because she's never seen it. And she's like, this is so cringe. And I'm like, you don't understand. You don't understand. Team Edward for life. But I love the songs, the movies, just everything. I love Twilight, okay? I know people are like, ew. Y'all don't understand it, okay? That's the thing. I've never read the book. And I don't know when I'll read it. I'm always like, I'll read it next fall. I'll read it this fall. And then they never do. So I don't know when I'll be reading that. I don't know. My books almost fell. That scared me. Next book. This is the other Stephen King book I own. 11/22/63. This is actually historical fiction. Mr. King not only writes horror, he has much more books that he writes. No, that's not how to say it. He not only writes horror, he also writes, I believe, historical fiction, and I think he writes a romance. Yeah, I think there's a book that's romance. This is historical fiction with a romance. I've had this book since 2018. How long ago was that? 19, 20, 21, 22. I've had this book for 6 years and I've never read it. I'm reading this next year when it turns 7 because of course. Oh my gosh. This is like the oldest book on my bookshelf. No wonder it looks so yellow. I have to, but that's just the tint of the pages. I don't know. I have to read this. Oh my god. Next book. Wicked by Gregory Maguire. Now, this book I've had for 2 years. I have not read it, not because I don't want to. I have been procrastinating and putting it off on purpose. I was waiting for the movie to get a release date so I could read the book closer to the release date. Comes out November 21st. I will be reading this in October. Or maybe this month. I don't know, because I failed my TBR. So this is going to be read this year. Thank you very much for watching this video. Goodbye. This was fun. I enjoyed it. Okay. Bye, lunch kitties. I hope you really enjoyed this. Mwah. Goodbye.